Hello everyone. For those of you that don't know yet, my name is Salem Addison King. I'm an activist here in Central Illinois and the founder of the Central Illinois United Front that seeks to unify leftist activists and organizations throughout our state to help protect our community at any cost. And today, when I heard about this event and I was asked to be a speaker, I wondered what it was that I needed to speak about, what it was that I could speak about in a unique way. What could I offer a unique perspective on? And I realized that since I've been doing this kind of activism since I was 13, the topic I wanted to discuss was complacency. The idea of activism that we've been propagandized to believe in, that doesn't actually achieve any real change. And in order to start off that speech, I would like to begin with the words of a trans 17-year-old from 2014. Please don't be sad. It's for the better. The life I would have lived isn't worth living because I'm transgender. I could go into detail explaining why I feel that way, but this note is probably going to be lengthy enough as it is. To put it simply, I feel like a girl trapped in a boy's body, and I felt that way ever since I was 4. I never knew there was a word for that feeling, nor was it possible for a boy to become a girl. So I never told anyone, and I just continued to do traditionally boyish things to try to fit in. When I was 14, I learned what transgender meant and cried of happiness. After 10 years of confusion, I finally understood who I was. I immediately told my mom, and she reacted extremely negatively, telling me that it was a phase, that I would never truly be a girl, that God doesn't make mistakes, that I'm wrong. If you're reading this, parents, please don't tell this to your kids. Even if you are Christian or against transgender people, don't ever say that to someone, especially your kid. That won't do anything but make them hate themselves. That's exactly what it did to me. My mom started taking me to a therapist, but would only take me to Christian therapists, who were all very biased. So I never actually got the therapy that I needed to cure me of my depression. I only got more Christians telling me that I was selfish and wrong and that I should look to God for help. When I was 16, I realized that my parents would never come around, and that I would have to wait until I was 18 to start any sort of transitioning treatment, which absolutely broke my heart. The longer you wait, the harder it is to transition. I felt hopeless, that I was just going to look like a man in drag for the rest of my life. On my 16th birthday, when I didn't receive a consent from my parents to start transitioning, I cried myself to sleep. I formed a sort of fuck you attitude towards my parents and came out as gay at school, thinking that maybe if I eased into coming out as trans, it would be less of a shock. Although the reaction from my friends was positive, my parents were pissed. They felt like I was attacking their image and that I was an embarrassment to them. They wanted me to be their perfect little straight Christian boy. And that's obviously not what I wanted. So they took me out of public school, took away my laptop and my phone, and forbid me from getting on any sort of social media, completely isolating me from my friends. This was the part of my life when I was the most depressed, and I'm surprised I didn't kill myself. I was completely alone for 5 months. No friends, no support, no love. Just my parents' disappointment and the cruelty of loneliness. At the end of the school year, my parents finally came around and gave me my phone and let me back on social media. I was excited. I finally had my friends back. They were extremely excited to see me and talk to me, but only at first. Eventually they realized they didn't actually give a shit about me, and I felt even lonelier than before. The only friends I thought I had only liked me because they saw me 5 times a week. After a summer of having almost no friends, plus the weight of having to think about college, save money for moving out, keep my grades up, go to church each week, and feeling like shit, because everyone there is against everything I live for, I've decided I've had enough. I'm never going to transition successfully. even when I move out. I'm never going to be happy with the way I look or sound. I'm never going to have enough friends to satisfy me. I'm never going to have enough love to satisfy me. I'm never going to find a man who loves me. I'm never going to be happy. Either I live the rest of my life as a lonely man who wishes he were a woman, or I live my life as a lonelier woman who hates herself. There's no winning. There's no way it gets better. I'm sad enough already. I don't need my life to get any worse. People say it gets better, but that isn't true in my case. It gets worse. Each day I get worse. And that's the gist of it. That's why I feel like killing myself. Sorry if that's not a good enough reason for you. It's good enough for me. As for my will, I want 100% of the things that I legally own to be sold, and the money, plus my money in the bank, to be given to trans civil rights movements and support groups. I don't give a shit which one. The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way I was. They're treated like humans. Oh, I apologize, having a slight issue. Okay, there we go. Sorry. The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way that I was. They're treated like humans with valid feelings and human rights. Gender needs to be taught about in schools. The earlier the better. My death needs to mean something. My death needs to be counted in the number of transgender people who commit suicide this year. I want someone to look at that number and say, that's fucked up, and fix it. Fix society. Please. Goodbye. Leela Alcorn.
Thank you.
That's fucked up. Let's fix it.
Sorry, it just... Now, if you're one of the unlucky bastards that's been on Tumblr and Wattpad for even longer than I have, you will probably recognize the latest suicide note from when it went viral back in 2014. And now, 8 years removed from her death, the community that she wanted so badly to protect is facing a full-fledged genocide. It started centuries ago when anyone who deviated from the Western gender norms of the European colonizers was deemed to be an other. Some separate group of animals that didn't deserve to be treated with the same dignity and respect as a regular person. Then, when society had finally progressed enough, that enough trans people had achieved the courage or comfortability to come out as their true selves, fuckers like Mike Huckabee or other various right-wing bigots decided to project their own sexual immorality onto us. Lamenting all the sexual assaults and they would have committed as a teenager, if only they were allowed to enter the girls' locker room, and that this was somehow the fault of trans people. Then using the propagandistic and vindictive version of the trans people that existed in their head to justify bathroom bills that would force trans people into spaces where they could be and have been violently assaulted. Despite this still not being more than a handful of accounts of anything even slightly inappropriate being done by trans people who were just trying to take a shit. Then, once their, let's call them, best efforts failed, and we continued to exist nonetheless, they moved on to dehumanization, saying that children are being groomed merely by the fact that they occasionally exist in the same room as an AMAB person wearing a dress or a skirt, or if a female teacher has the audacity to mention that she has a wife to her students. But the grooming that takes place in the Catholic and Baptist Church is clearly just the fault of homosexual infiltration. And now that their language is starting to take off, the TERFs and the fascists, but I repeat myself, are joining together to create openly genocidal institutions like the LGB Alliance, Libs of TikTok, Illinois Family Institute, or the Republican Party. So now what? It's very clear that this current backlash against the civil rights of trans people is only getting more and more severe. Even as more and more people are coming to understand and accept the trans community. Even as more people are willing to use they, them pronouns and able to do so. Even as more people have a close friend or family member who is a member of the trans community. Hell, I even hear there's a gay couple on Peppa Pig now. Culturally speaking, things have actually been on an upward trend for the queer community. And that is exactly why they are ramping up their genocidal rhetoric. Because our very existence threatens their patriarchal and genocidal Western hegemony. And in order for their theocracy to take hold, we must be jammed back into the closet. To demonstrate this phenomenon, I would actually like to use one of Obama's favorite quotes. "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it always bends towards justice." And if that isn't just the very height of liberal fantasy. The improvements we've seen in social justice over the course of the last century have not been from natural occurrence. The reason that the moral arc of the universe has begun to bend towards justice is because the rioters at Stonewall, the Black Panthers, the Nazi-killing Soviets, the Freedom Riders, and countless other anti-fascists were willing to shed their own blood to grab that son of a bitch and bend it manually. The only reason we've made any progress at all is because our predecessors were willing to face down lynchings, fascist cops, bomb threats, hate crimes, and prison time if it meant justice. So what right do we have to do any different? You wonder why it is that you continuously march around with your signs and chants while making sure to vote blue no matter who, yet nothing fucking changes. And that is the difference between a genuine anti-fascist and a fake one. A true anti-fascist will look at the tactics of the past, whereas a privileged liberal, pretending to be an anti-fascist, will always refuse to sink to the level of those common criminals, rioters and looters, disruptive freeloaders, and overly emotional queers. A pretender fights like it is a test of morality, a test to see if you are a good enough person to help your socioeconomic lesser. But a true advocate, a true warrior for justice, fights like their life depends on it. Because in case you hadn't noticed, regardless of your race, gender, or preferred pelvic structure, you are going to spend the rest of your life slaving away to make money for someone you're never going to meet, while that same bastard raises the prices and forces you to choose between paying rent and groceries, because either way the money is going to somebody the fuck else. Now imagine dealing with that wage slavery along with the effects of transphobia, homophobia, racism. Imagine what it is like to be under the constant stress that comes with class oppression, and then finally gathering up the energy to go to a protest or a pride parade and spending the entire ordeal being disempowered, being told that your pain or your strategic knowledge doesn't matter because you said fuck one too many times, being surrounded by the same police department who pointed a fucking gun at me when I was walking home from work at 2 a.m. because I looked suspicious. Imagine watching as everything your community has worked for decades slips away because privileged suburbanites thought that they were more knowledgeable in how to protest because they listened to MLK's I Have a Dream once in middle school. And you see that tone policing, that urge to keep things professional, that urge, that expectation that a white man in a suit is more trustworthy than a long-haired twink who very clearly is still in their middle school emo phase. That is why the work of modern progressives doesn't work. You see, I'm not here because I want to be. I have been fighting for the last 6 years just so that I could show my corporate daddies what a good and upstanding citizen I was. I did it because I was sick and tired of watching my friends die. So please, help us. Stop hiding behind your privilege and your excuses and fight like all of our lives fucking depend on it. Because make no mistake, these fucking cunts are trying to legislate trans people out of existence. And that, my friends, is the very definition of a genocide. The politicians, the corporations, the Daily Wire, they don't care about us. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. They are more than willing to use both economic and physical violence to keep all of us in line. So please, join us. Fight like hell. Let us all abandon the patriarchal standards of our oppressors and fight back. Because I refuse to go back into the closet. I refuse to spend the rest of my life working for yet another white guy in a suit. I will live free, and I will do whatever is necessary to make sure that the lives of the next generation are going to be better than mine.
Yes! Yes!
And for all of our sakes, I hope that each and every one of you can say the same.
Yes.
Thank you.
Woo!